Question 1. What is the primary purpose of using a shared access signature, SAS, in Azure storage? Option A. To grant full administrative access to an entire storage account to untrusted clients. Option B. To permanently assign a custom domain name to a storage account. Option C. To provide delegated, time-limited, and permission-restricted access to storage resources without exposing storage account access keys. Option D. To encrypt all data at rest within a storage account. The correct answer is to provide delegated, time-limited, and permission-restricted access to storage resources without exposing storage account access keys. Here's the explanation. SAS is a security mechanism that provides delegated access to storage resources for a specified period, with specific permissions, and without distributing sensitive master keys, aligning with the principle of least privilege. Question 2. Which of the following methods allows for the most granular and immediate revocation of an active service SAS before its expiry time, without affecting other SAS tokens? Option A. Deleting the SAS URI from the client application. Option B. Revoking the Azure AD identity used to generate the SAS. Option C. Rotating the storage account key used to sign the SAS. Option D. Modifying or deleting the associated stored access policy. The correct answer is modifying or deleting the associated stored access policy. Here's the explanation. For service SAS, the most granular way to revoke them before their expiry is to use a stored access policy. By changing or deleting the policy, all SAS tokens referencing that policy are immediately invalidated, without affecting other SAS tokens signed with the same account key. Question 3. Which type of shared access signature, SAS, is specifically recommended for blob storage access when integration with Azure Active Directory auditing is desired? Option A. Service SAS. Option B. Account SAS. Option C. User Delegation SAS. Option D. Container SAS. The correct answer is User Delegation SAS. Here's the explanation. The study material highlights that User Delegation SAS grants access to blob storage resources using Azure Active Directory credentials and is signed with a user delegation key obtained from Azure AD, making it the most secure option for blobs as it integrates with Azure AD auditing. Question 4. Which of the following best describes the level of access granted by an Azure Storage Account Access Key? Option A. Limited read-only access to specific containers. Option B. Full, unrestricted, owner-level access to all data and operations within the storage account. Option C. Granular permissions configurable per blob or file. Option D. Access restricted only to Azure services within the same subscription. The correct answer is full, unrestricted, owner-level access to all data and operations within the storage account. Here's the explanation. Storage account access keys are super user credentials, granting full and unrestricted, owner-level access to all data and operations within the respective storage account. They do not offer granular permissions. Question 5. What is the primary security benefit of having two distinct storage account access keys, Key 1 and Key 2, for each Azure storage account? Option A. To provide separate read and write access for different applications. Option B. To enable key rotation without causing downtime for applications. Option C. To allow one key for programmatic access and the other for portal access. Option D. To store data in two different geographical regions for redundancy. The correct answer is to enable key rotation without causing downtime for applications. Here's the explanation. The existence of two keys, Key 1 and Key 2, facilitates key rotation, a critical security practice. One key can remain active while the other is being replaced, ensuring continuous service availability during the rotation process. Question 6. An application uses a storage account access key to authenticate requests to Azure Storage. Which authentication mechanism is primarily utilized in this scenario? Option A, Azure Active Directory, Azure AD, Role-Based Access Control, RBAC. Option B, Shared Access Signatures, SAS. Option C, Shared Key Authentication involving HMAC SHA 256. Option D, OAuth 2.0 Token-Based Authentication. The correct answer is Shared Key Authentication involving HMAC SHA 256. Here's the explanation. Storage account access keys rely on shared key authentication, a symmetric key scheme where the client uses the key to compute an HMAC SHA 256 hash digital signature for each request, which Azure Storage then verifies. This is distinct from identity-based Azure AD RBAC or time-limited SAS authentication. Question 7. A development team is building a new application that will interact with Azure Blob Storage. The security architect insists on using Azure Active Directory, Azure AD, for authentication and authorization to the storage account. What is the primary advantage of using Azure AD authentication over shared key authentication for this application? Option A, Azure AD authentication provides full administrative access to the entire storage account with a single credential. Option B, Azure AD authentication simplifies credential management by eliminating the need for any secrets in the application code. Option C, Azure AD authentication enables highly granular, identity-based access control to specific storage resources using RBAC. Option D, Azure AD authentication is the only method that allows access to private storage accounts from within an Azure virtual network. The correct answer is Azure AD authentication enables highly granular, identity-based access control to specific storage resources using RBAC. Here's the explanation. The primary advantage of Azure AD authentication is its integration with Azure RBAC, allowing for highly granular, identity-based permissions, e.g., read-only access to a specific container, at the data plane. Shared keys grant full administrative access, A, and are less secure, while managed identities, a form of AAD auth, can eliminate secrets, B. This is a specific feature, not the primary overall advantage of AAD auth itself over shared keys. Network security features handle VNet access, D. Question 8. An Azure virtual machine hosts an application that needs to securely upload files to an Azure Blob storage container. The security team wants to avoid embedding any credentials, like shared keys or client secrets, directly into the VM's configuration or application code. Which Azure AD feature is the most secure and recommended approach for the VM to authenticate to Azure Storage? Option A, create a shared access signature (SAS) token for the storage container and embed it in the application. Option B, use a service principal with a client secret stored in Azure Key Vault and retrieved by the application. Option C, assign a system-assigned managed identity to the Azure VM and grant it the necessary RBAC role on the storage container. Option D, configure the storage account to allow public anonymous access to the container for uploads. The correct answer is assign a system-assigned managed identity to the Azure VM and grant it the necessary RBAC role on the storage container. Here's the explanation. Managed identities for Azure resources are the most secure and recommended way for Azure services, like VMs, to authenticate to other Azure AD protected services like storage without managing secrets. Azure automatically manages the lifecycle of credentials for the identity, eliminating the need to embed or store them in code. SAS tokens, A, are for delegated temporary access and still involve managing a secret. Service principals with Key Vault, B, are an option but still require the app to retrieve a secret, making managed identities simpler and often more secure. Public anonymous access, D, is highly insecure and generally not acceptable for production uploads. Question 9. A new Azure storage account has been created. By default, what authentication method is enabled, and what must be configured to enforce Azure Active Directory, Azure AD, authentication as the exclusive method for accessing data plane operations? Option A. By default, Azure AD authentication is enabled. To enforce it exclusively, disable shared key access on the storage account. Option B. By default, shared key authentication is enabled. To enforce Azure AD exclusively, disable shared key access on the storage account. Option C. By default, shared key authentication is enabled. To enforce Azure AD exclusively, enable managed identity authentication on the storage account. Option D. By default, anonymous access is enabled. To enforce Azure AD exclusively, configure an Azure AD conditional access policy. The correct answer is: by default, shared key authentication is enabled. To enforce Azure AD exclusively, disable shared key access on the storage account. Here's the explanation. By default, Azure storage accounts allow shared key authentication. To enforce Azure AD authentication as the exclusive method and prevent access via shared keys, you must explicitly disable shared key access on the storage account. Managed identity, C, is a type of AAD identity, not a global enforcement mechanism. Anonymous access, D, is not the default, and conditional access policies build on AAD. They don't disable other auth methods. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel.